I'm 64 years old. I raised my son alone. Worked 2 jobs so he could have the life I never did. Sacrificed everything. My time, my body, my dreams, so he could go to college, start a business, build something real. 6 months ago, he asked me to move in with him and his wife. "Dad, you shouldn't be alone anymore. We have the space. It'll be great." I sold my house, the one I'd paid off after 30 years of sweat and calluses. I handed him the check to help renovate their dream home. And then, one Tuesday morning while I'm standing in the kitchen I helped buy, my daughter-in-law tosses her designer handbag on the counter and says 5 words that changed everything. "From today on, you're the maid." Not a request, not a joke, a command. And my son? He said nothing. For 6 months, I scrubbed their toilets. I cleared their plates while they entertained friends who laughed when she introduced me as the help. I slept in a storage room and watched my son become a stranger. But here's what Claire didn't know. You don't disrespect a man who spent his whole life building things without consequences. You don't humiliate someone in their own home and expect them to just take it. And you definitely don't underestimate a 64-year-old construction worker who knows how to tear things down just as well as he knows how to build them up. What I did next, she never saw it coming. My son never saw it coming. Hell, I almost didn't see it coming. But by the time I was done, Claire learned a lesson she'll carry for the rest of her life. Respect isn't optional. And patience is the most dangerous weapon of all. This is my story, and I'm only telling it once. But before I take you inside what really happened, before I show you how an invisible old man dismantled a manipulator's entire world without raising his voice, I need something from you. Hit that subscribe button right now, not later, now. Because what happens next, that's where the humiliation gets real. That's where you'll see exactly what I endured, and why what I did was justified. Smash that like button. Let the algorithm know this story matters, that real people go through this, that dignity isn't negotiable. And hit that notification bell because I'm breaking this story into chapters. And trust me, you do not want to miss what comes next. If you've ever felt invisible, if you've ever been disrespected by someone who should have known better, if you've ever wondered whether revenge can be quiet, surgical, and absolutely devastating, then stay with me. Drop a comment right now, just one word: respect. Let me know you're here. Let me know this story hit you the way it still hits me. I remember the exact moment my life became unrecognizable. It was a Tuesday, October 17th. The morning light was coming through the kitchen window, the one that overlooks the garden I'd helped landscape when Michael and Claire closed on the house. I was making coffee, my coffee, in my mug, the chipped blue one I'd had since Michael was in high school. I heard heels clicking on the hardwood before I saw her. Claire swept into the kitchen like she owned the place, which legally, I suppose she did. She was wearing one of those athleisure outfits that cost more than I used to make in a week, all smooth fabric and designer logos. Her hair was pulled back in a perfect ponytail, phone in one hand, keys in the other. She didn't say good morning. She dropped her Prada handbag on the counter I'd cleaned the night before and said, "From today on, you're the maid." I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, because my brain couldn't process what I'd just heard. "Excuse me?" She didn't look up from her phone, just kept scrolling, thumb moving with practiced efficiency. "You heard me, Robert. Michael and I discussed it. You're living here rent-free, so you might as well earn your keep. There's a list on the fridge. I expect the house cleaned by 3. We have people coming over tonight." The mug felt heavy in my hand. I set it down carefully, afraid I might drop it, or throw it. "Claire, I'm not your maid, I'm your father-in-law." She finally looked at me, and I'll never forget her expression. Not angry, not even cold, just dismissive, like I was a problem she'd already solved in her head. "And as my father-in-law, I think you'd want to contribute to the household, unless you'd rather find somewhere else to live?" The threat hung in the air like smoke. I wanted to say something, wanted to tell her exactly where she could shove her list. But I thought about Michael, about how hard he'd worked to convince me to move in, about how he'd looked at me 6 months ago, nervous and hopeful. "Dad, please, I don't want you alone in that big house anymore. Let me take care of you for once." So I swallowed my pride, swallowed the rage building in my chest. "Where's Michael?" "Already at the office. He left at 6. She picked up her bag. "Oh, and Robert, when you clean the bathrooms, use the good products. Not that cheap stuff you bought. I don't know what you're used to, but we have standards here." She left without another word. I stood in that kitchen, my kitchen, the one I'd helped buy with the $180,000 from selling my house, and felt something crack inside my chest. The list on the fridge was 3 pages long. Vacuum all rooms, mop floors, scrub bathrooms, toilets, showers, sinks, dust ceiling fans, clean windows, do laundry, iron Michael's shirts, prepare dinner for 6 people by 6 p.m. "Nothing spicy," it said at the bottom, "and nothing that smells. Claire's friends are sensitive." I looked at my hands, 64 years old, covered in scars from construction sites, from building things that lasted. These hands had raised a son, worked themselves raw so that boy could have opportunities I'd never had, and now they were scrubbing someone else's toilet. I did it, though, all of it, not because I believed I was the maid, but because I was still trying to believe this was temporary, that Claire was just adjusting, that Michael would notice, that someone would remember who I actually was. By 3 o'clock, the house was spotless. I'd cooked dinner, chicken piccata, roasted vegetables, garlic bread. I'd set the table with their expensive china. I'd even put out fresh flowers from the garden. When Claire came home at 5:30, she walked through the house with her phone out, filming, like an inspector. She didn't say, "Thank you," didn't acknowledge the work. She just said, "The living room still smells like old person. Open the windows." Michael came home at 6:15, exhausted. His tie was loose, dark circles under his eyes. When he saw me in the kitchen, he smiled, this tired, grateful smile that broke my heart a little. "Dad, this smells amazing. You didn't have to go through all this trouble." "It's no trouble, son." Claire appeared behind him, already changed into a cocktail dress. "Robert, can you make sure to stay in your room once the guests arrive? We're trying to make an impression tonight and—" She didn't finish the sentence, didn't have to. You're an embarrassment hung in the air, unspoken but clear. Michael shifted uncomfortably. "Claire, maybe Dad could join." "Michael." Her voice was sharp. "We discussed this." He looked at me, looked at her, and then he looked away. "Yeah. Okay." That's when I knew. My son, the boy I'd raised to stand up for what's right, to defend people who couldn't defend themselves, was letting this happen. I ate dinner alone in my room that night. The room was what used to be a storage space off the garage. It had a twin bed, a small dresser, and one window that faced the neighbor's fence. Claire had suggested I take it temporarily when I first moved in. "Just until we figure out the best arrangement," she'd said. That was 6 months ago. Through the walls, I could hear laughter, glasses clinking, Claire's voice loud and performative. "And Michael's been working so hard on this new contract. I keep telling him he's going to burn himself out." Someone laughed. "Well, at least you're here to take care of him." "Oh, absolutely. I mean, someone has to run this household." I lay there in the dark in a room that smelled like paint and mothballs and felt something shift inside me. Not anger, not yet. Something colder, clearer. The next morning, there was another note on the fridge. "Robert, guests left wine rings on the coffee table. Please refinish by Thursday. Also, bathroom needs deep cleaning. Someone was sick. C. No, please. No, thank you. Just orders." I cleaned the bathroom, scrubbed someone else's vomit off tile I'd helped install, and that's when I made my decision. Not revenge, not immediately, but I was going to see what was really happening here. I was going to pay attention, document, understand exactly who Claire was when she thought no one important was watching. Because here's what 64 years teaches you. People show you who they really are when they think you don't matter. And invisible men? We see everything. They say eavesdroppers never hear good things about themselves. But I wasn't eavesdropping. I was just existing. In my own house, doing the chores I'd been assigned like a good little servant. Funny thing about being invisible. People forget you have ears. It started 3 days after the Maid conversation. I was in the laundry room, folding Claire's designer workout clothes, the ones with tags still attached that she'd clearly never worn, when I heard her on the phone in the next room. Her voice was different, sharper, more animated than the bored, dismissive tone she used with me. "No, Vanessa, I'm serious. He just does whatever I tell him. It's like having a butler, except I don't have to pay him." Laughter, cruel and careless. "I know, right? Michael feels guilty, so he won't say anything. And the old man, he's so desperate to stay close to his son, he'll scrub toilets if I ask." My hand stopped moving. A silk blouse, $340, according to the receipt I'd found in the pocket, hung limp in my grip. The best part? Michael's so busy with the startup he barely notices. I've got complete control of the house, the finances, everything. It's actually kind of perfect. I set the blouse down carefully, quietly, and I started paying attention. Over the next 2 weeks, I became a ghost in my own home. I didn't argue, didn't complain. I did exactly what Claire asked, exactly when she asked it. I became the perfect servant, efficient, silent, invisible. But invisible doesn't mean blind. While I cleaned, I looked. While I organized, I noticed. While I did laundry, I checked pockets, read receipts, saw credit card statements Claire left scattered on her desk like they didn't matter, because to her, they didn't. Who cares if the maid sees your spending when the maid doesn't count as a real person? Here's what I discovered. The business that wasn't Claire told everyone, Michael, her friends, her family, that she ran a freelance marketing consultancy. She had business cards, a website, an Instagram with 12,000 followers showing her working at cafes with her laptop. But I'd been in this house for 6 months. I'd never seen a client meeting, never heard a business call, never seen her produce anything that looked like actual work. What I did see: credit card statements showing $4,200 at Nordstrom in 1 month, spa receipts totaling $1,800, 3 business lunch charges at expensive restaurants, all on weekdays, all with her friends, all charged to Michael's credit card. A receipt for a Prada handbag, $3,600. Written off as marketing materials on her expense sheet, I photographed everything. My old phone had a decent camera, and nobody pays attention to an old man scrolling through his phone while he eats lunch alone in the garage. The friend group. Claire's friends came over twice a week, like clockwork. Tuesday yoga sessions. They never did yoga, just drank mimosas on the patio. Thursday, planning meetings for their businesses. I served drinks, cleared plates, remained invisible, and I listened. Vanessa, blonde, loud, married to a surgeon. "Girl, you've got this figured out. Michael's making bank and you don't even have to pretend to work anymore." Sienna, brunette, influencer with 50K followers. "I wish Tyler was that easy to manage. He actually expects me to cook dinner sometimes." Claire, "It's all about training them. Michael's a pleaser. He just wants everyone happy. So I stay happy, and he works himself to death to keep it that way." They laughed. All of them. I stood 10 feet away, holding a tray of cheese and crackers they'd barely touched, and I might as well have been a piece of furniture. But it was Vanessa's comment 2 weeks later that made my blood freeze. "So, when are you actually going to pull the trigger?" Claire's voice dropped. I was in the kitchen, supposedly washing dishes, but the window was open. "Probably another year, maybe 18 months. I need to hit the 5-year mark for the alimony to really be worth it." Silence. Then nervous laughter. "You're kidding." "I'm not. Look, I love the lifestyle. I love this house. But Michael, he's boring, Vanessa. He works all the time. He's got zero social skills and he's obsessed with his dad. It's exhausting. But you signed a prenup. Doesn't matter. I've been researching. If I can prove I contributed to the household, supported his business emotionally, there's wiggle room. Plus, he has that trust fund from his grandfather. I've been getting him to transfer bits into our joint account for emergencies. He's too trusting to question it. My hands were shaking so badly I had to set down the plate I was holding. That trust fund? I'd set it up. 20 years of putting money aside, bit by bit, so Michael would have security. So he'd have something his mother, who'd abandoned us when he was 6, could never touch. And Claire was systematically draining it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my storage room with its single window and water-stained ceiling, and I thought about my son. Michael at 7, crying because kids at school made fun of his second-hand shoes. Me, working overtime for a month to buy him new Nikes. Michael, at 15, staying up late to help me with paperwork after I got injured on a job site. Dad, you rest. I got this. Michael at 25, graduating with his business degree, hugging me so hard I could barely breathe. I couldn't have done this without you. And now, Michael at 32, so buried in work and manipulation that he couldn't see his own father sleeping in a storage room. Couldn't hear his wife discussing divorce strategies like a hostile takeover. The heartbreak was physical, an actual ache in my chest. But underneath the heartbreak, something else was growing. Not rage, not exactly. Clarity, crystal clear, cold-as-ice clarity. Claire wasn't just disrespecting me. She was destroying my son, bleeding him dry financially, isolating him emotionally, and planning an exit strategy that would devastate him. And I was the only one who could see it. The next morning, I made a phone call. Thomas Brennan. We'd worked construction together 30 years ago before he went to law school at night, became a family attorney. We'd stayed close, grabbed coffee every few months, complained about our knees and the price of everything. Tom, I need advice, hypothetically. Robert, nothing good ever starts with hypothetically. What's going on? I told him. Not everything, just enough. When I finished, there was a long silence. Jesus, Robert, why didn't you call me sooner? Because I wanted to believe it would get better, that Michael would notice, that I was overreacting. And now I need to know my options. Not for me, for Michael. Another pause. Okay, first thing, document everything. Photographs, recordings if you're in a one-party consent state, which California is. Don't confront. Don't make accusations. Just collect data. I've already started. Good. Second, that trust fund you mentioned. If it's properly structured and you're the trustee, she can't touch it. But if Michael's been transferring funds, he has, to their joint account. Shit. Okay, that's recoverable, but we need to act fast. How much are we talking? At least 30,000, maybe more. I heard Thomas typing. Robert, I'm sending you some documents. Secure a storage space, something off-site, back everything up, and listen to me. You cannot tell Michael yet. What? Tom, he's my son. And he's in love with a woman who's playing him like a fiddle. If you go to him now with accusations, she'll spin it. Make you the villain. Make him choose. And right now, he might not choose you. The words hit like a punch to the gut because they were true. So, what do? You let her hang herself. People like Claire, they get cocky. They make mistakes. Your job is to be there when she does, with evidence, witnesses, and a legal safety net for your son. I hung up and sat there in the garage, surrounded by storage boxes labeled Robert's Tools and Robert's Old Photos. Boxes Claire had asked me to reorganize, twice, because they were cluttering her space. And I realized something. She'd made a critical mistake. She'd underestimated me, treated me like I was used up, washed up, irrelevant. But I'd spent 40 years in construction. You know what we do? we plan. We measure twice, cut once. We build foundations that last and tear down structures that are unsafe. And Claire? She'd built her entire strategy on a foundation of arrogance and contempt. I was going to take it apart, brick by brick, conversation by conversation, receipt by receipt. That evening, Michael came home at 9 p.m. He looked like death, pale, exhausted, barely holding himself together. Claire was out with friends, again. "Dad, you didn't have to wait up." "Couldn't sleep anyway. You hungry?" "Starving. I didn't have time for lunch." I heated up leftovers. We sat at the kitchen counter, just the two of us, and for a moment it felt like old times. "How's the startup?" I asked. "Brutal. We're so close to landing this investor, but—" He rubbed his face. "I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm drowning, and everyone's just watching." He looked at me. Really looked. "Dad, are you okay here? With Claire and everything?" This was my chance. I could tell him. Right now. Show him the receipts, play him the recordings. But I heard Thomas's voice in my head. He might not choose you. So I lied. For his own good. "I'm fine, son. Just glad to be close to you." He squeezed my shoulder. "I'm glad too, Dad." He went to bed 20 minutes later, and I went back to my storage room, pulled out my hidden folder of evidence, and added another entry to my timeline. 3 days later, Claire made her first major mistake, and I was ready. Chapter 3: The Long Game. Claire's first mistake happened on a Thursday. I remember because Thursdays were her planning meeting days, which meant Vanessa and Sienna would come over, drink expensive wine Michael paid for, and pretend they were running empires instead of spending their husband's money. I was in the kitchen, preparing their usual spread. Cheese board, crackers, fruit, those little chocolate-covered almonds Claire liked. Playing my role, the invisible servant. But this Thursday, Claire got careless. She left her laptop open. Not unusual, she often left it on the kitchen counter while she got ready upstairs. But this time, she forgot to close her email tab. I wasn't snooping, I was wiping down the counter. The screen was just there, and at the top of her inbox, flagged in red, Consultation, Mitchell Divorce Inquiry. My hand froze mid-wipe. I glanced toward the stairs, heard water running. She was in the shower. I had maybe 5 minutes. I pulled out my phone, hands shaking, and started photographing. Every email, every attachment. Here's what I found. Email number 1, October 3rd. "Hi Jennifer, I'm inquiring about divorce proceedings in California. Married 4.5 years, husband has successful startup, trust fund from family. I signed a prenup, but believe I have grounds to contest. What are my options?" Email number 2, October 10th. "Thank you for the consultation. To clarify, if I can prove emotional support of his business and contribution to household, the prenup can be challenged, and the 5-year mark strengthens my position." Email number 3, October 24th. "Understood. I'll continue documenting my contributions and begin transferring shared assets to joint accounts. Timeline, approximately 6 to 8 months." There were more, 11 emails total, each one more calculating than the last. Budget breakdowns, asset evaluations, a timeline for optimal exit strategy. My son's marriage wasn't failing. It was being dismantled, methodically, with legal precision. I heard the water shut off upstairs. I sent the photos to myself, deleted them from my phone's sent folder, and pocketed the device just as Claire's footsteps creaked overhead. By the time she came downstairs, hair wrapped in a towel, wearing a silk robe that cost more than my monthly Social Security, I was arranging cheese on a board like nothing had happened. "Robert, the brie needs to be room temperature. I've told you this." "Sorry, Claire. I'll remember next time." She didn't even look at me, just grabbed her laptop and carried it upstairs. I stood there, knife in hand, and felt something shift in my chest. Not anger anymore. Purpose. That night I met Thomas at a diner 40 minutes away, far enough that no one from Michael's circle would see us. I slid my phone across the table. He scrolled through the photos, his expression darkening with each swipe. Jesus Christ, Robert. Can she do this? Can she actually challenge the prenup? Thomas leaned back, rubbed his temples. In California? Maybe. If she can prove she contributed significantly to his business success, supported him through critical periods, a judge might consider it. It's a long shot, but with a good lawyer and a sympathetic court. So she's not bluffing. No, she's been planning this for months. He looked at me. But here's the thing. This email chain is gold. It proves premeditation. Proves she entered the marriage, or at least continued it, under false pretenses. Any judge sees this, her case falls apart. So I show Michael. No. Thomas's voice was firm. Not yet. Because right now, all you have is proof she's thinking about divorce. You need proof she's actively harming him, draining accounts, lying to him, something concrete that he can't rationalize away. I wanted to argue, wanted to grab my son and shake him awake, but I'd learned patience in 64 years. Sometimes you have to let people walk to the edge before they're willing to step back. How long? I asked. Give it a month, maybe 2. Keep documenting. And Robert? He met my eyes. Be careful. Women like Claire, when they feel threatened, they escalate. He was right. 2 weeks later, Claire escalated. It started small. New chores appeared on my list. Not just cleaning anymore. Now I was expected to run errands, pick up her dry cleaning, return items she'd bought and changed her mind about, stand in line at the post office because she didn't have time. I did it all, quietly, efficiently, but I was also listening. November 8th, overhead in the living room, Sienna. Have you told him about your dad wanting to visit? Claire. God, no. Can you imagine? My father and Robert in the same house? It would be a nightmare. Robert would probably embarrass us, tell some story about his construction days. No thanks. Vanessa. So, what are you going to do? Claire. Tell my parents we're renovating, that we don't have space. Robert can go stay at some extended stay hotel for the week. Michael won't care. He barely notices his dad anyway. She was going to kick me out. Not permanently. Just enough to establish that this was her house, and I was here on her terms. I didn't tell Michael, didn't confront her. Instead, I went to my storage room, pulled out the recorder Thomas had advised me to buy, and started carrying it in my shirt pocket. November 15th. Recorded conversation. Claire on phone with her mother. Claire. No, Mom, everything's fine. Michael's working hard, the house is beautiful. Yes, his father lives here, but it's temporary. Well, he's old, Mom. He needs help. We're doing a good thing. Pause. Claire. Of course he contributes. He keeps the house clean, does errands. It's not like he just sits around. No, Michael doesn't pay him. Why would we? He's family. Another pause. Her voice dropped, irritated. Claire. Look, it's not ideal, okay? But Michael feels guilty about putting him in a home. Once the business stabilizes, we'll revisit it. I'm just managing the situation until then. I played that recording 3 times. Each time the words hurt less and made me angrier. Managing the situation. That's what I was. A situation to be managed. But anger wasn't going to help Michael, so I channeled it into something useful. Research. I started tracking everything with timestamps. 7:42 a.m. Novi 18th. Claire charges $890 to Michael's Amex. Statement says business development lunch. Her Instagram that day shows her at a spa. 2:15 p.m. Nov the 20th. Overhead Claire telling Vanessa. Michael's so stressed about this investor meeting. I told him he needs to close it soon or we're going to have problems. I'm not living like this forever. 11:33 p.m. Nov 23rd. Michael comes home, exhausted. Claire's already asleep. He sits in the kitchen with his head in his hands for 20 minutes. I make him tea. He thanks me, says nothing else. 10:05 a.m., Nov the 27th. Claire asks me to deep clean the garage. I find a shopping bag hidden behind holiday decorations. 3 designer dresses, tags still on. Total $2,400. Receipt dated 2 days ago. Charged to Michael's card. I documented it all. And I waited. December 3rd. The breaking point came. Michael landed the investor meeting. David Chen, a 67-year-old self-made man who'd built his tech empire from nothing. The meeting was scheduled at the house. A formal dinner. Claire had been planning for weeks. She hired caterers, rented furniture, even brought in a bartender. And 3 days before the dinner, she came to me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Robert, about Saturday night. I think it's best if you make yourself scarce. Maybe see a movie? Go visit a friend? Michael and I need to make a good impression and... She didn't finish, but I heard the rest, and you'll ruin it. Of course, Claire, whatever you need. She looked almost surprised. Great, I'll leave some money for dinner and a movie. $40, like I was a teenager being paid to leave the house. But here's what Claire didn't know. 3 days earlier, I'd called David Chen's office. Not to complain, not to sabotage, just to introduce myself. Hi, this is Robert Mitchell. I'm Michael Mitchell's father. I wanted to reach out before your dinner meeting. I know Mr. Chen values family, and I thought he might appreciate some background on Michael's journey. The assistant was warm, professional. Mr. Chen would absolutely love that. He specifically asked about Michael's family. Can you hold? 2 minutes later, David Chen himself was on the line. We talked for 45 minutes. I told him about raising Michael alone, about working 2 jobs, about the trust fund I'd built penny by penny, about how proud I was of the man my son had become. David listened, really listened, and at the end he said, Robert, I'd be honored to meet you at this dinner. Family is everything. A man's character shows in how he treats the people who raised him. Well, I said carefully, Claire's planning quite an evening. I'm sure it'll be impressive. I'm sure it will, but I'm more interested in meeting the man behind the man. See you Saturday, Robert. I hung up and smiled. Not a victory smile, a checkmate smile. Saturday arrived, and Claire had no idea what was coming. Oh, you felt that, didn't you? Robert just set the trap. And Claire, she's about to walk right into it. Next is the moment you've been waiting for, the dinner where everything unravels. But here's the deal. If you're not subscribed, you're going to miss it. This is the turning point. The moment where Claire's perfect facade cracks in front of the one person who could destroy Michael's business deal, except Robert's already gotten there first. Subscribe now. Don't just think about it. Do it. Smash that like button if you're ready to see Claire get what's coming. Comment, checkmate, if you see where this is going. Let's go. Saturday, December 7th. The night, everything changed. Claire had been preparing for 3 days straight, coordinating caterers, arranging flowers, briefing the bartender on which wines to pour. She'd even had her hair professionally styled, her makeup done by someone who charged $300 for a natural look. She looked perfect. The house looked perfect. And I was supposed to be gone. 5:45 p.m., 15 minutes before David Chen's arrival. I was in my storage room, dressed in my good button-down, the navy one Michael bought me 3 Christmases ago, and clean slacks. My hands were steady as I buttoned the cuffs. Through the door, I heard Claire's heels clicking frantically across the hardwood. Michael, did you confirm the wine? Is the caterer set up? Where are the... Claire, breathe. Everything's ready. It's going to be fine. It has to be perfect. David Chen doesn't take meetings at people's homes unless he's seriously considering investing. This could change everything for us. For us, she said, like she'd been part of building the startup, like she'd been there during Michael's 70-hour work weeks, his panic attacks over funding, his doubts at 3 a.m. I'd been there for all of it, listening through thin walls, making coffee at dawn, reminding him he was capable, but I was supposed to be at the movies. 5:58 p.m. I heard the doorbell. Deep breath. I waited 30 seconds, let them get through the initial greetings, then I opened my door and walked into the living room. The scene froze like someone hit pause. Michael stood near the entrance, hand extended toward David Chen, a silver-haired man in an impeccable suit, warm eyes, the bearing of someone who'd built his success on handshakes and integrity. Claire was mid-gesture, her professional smile locked in place. And then they all saw me. "Dad?" Michael's confusion was genuine. "I thought you were—" "Robert!" David's face broke into a genuine smile. He crossed the room, hand extended. "It's so good to finally meet you in person." I shook his hand. Firm grip. Eye contact. "The pleasure's mine, David." Claire's face went through 5 emotions in 3 seconds. Shock, confusion, panic, rage, and, finally, a forced smile that looked like it might crack her face. "Robert, I thought you were going to see a movie." "Change of plans," I said simply. Then, turning to David, "I hope I'm not intruding." "Intruding?" David laughed, a warm, genuine sound. "Robert, I specifically asked to meet you. Your son's story is impressive, but I always want to know the people behind the story. Family tells you everything about a man's character." Michael looked between us, still processing. "You two talked?" "Earlier this week," David confirmed. "Your father called my office. We had a wonderful conversation about your upbringing, his work ethic, the sacrifices he made for your education." He turned to Claire, and I watched her smile tighten. "You must be Claire. Michael's lucky to have such a supportive wife." The pause before supportive was microscopic, but I caught it, and judging by the flicker in Claire's eyes, so did she. Dinner was excruciating. For Claire. The caterer had prepared a beautiful meal: seared salmon, roasted vegetables, artisan bread. Everything was plated with precision, but David barely looked at the food. He wanted to talk. About family, about values, about what it meant to build something real. "Robert," he said, cutting into his salmon, "Michael mentioned you worked construction for 40 years. That's honest work? Hard work?" "It was," I agreed. "Taught me to measure twice, cut once, build things that last." "That's a philosophy more people should follow." David glanced at Michael. "Your startup. Tell me, what are you building that's meant to last? Not just turn a quick profit, but create something sustainable?" Michael launched into his pitch, and for the first time in months, I saw him animated, passionate. The kid I'd raised who believed in doing things right. David listened intently, asked questions. Claire tried to interject twice, comments about our vision and what we're building together. David was polite, but he kept redirecting to Michael, and to me. Then came the question that changed everything. "So, Robert," David set down his fork. "Michael mentioned you moved in with them recently. That must be nice being close to family." "It is," I said carefully. "And you help around the house, I understand?" The room went silent. Claire's fork clinked against her plate. Michael shifted uncomfortably. I met David's eyes, and I saw something there. He knew. He'd done his research. This wasn't a casual question. "I contribute where I can," I said evenly, though I think help around the house might be understating it a bit. "Oh?" David's eyebrows raised. Interested, not judgmental, just listening. Claire jumped in, voice too bright. "Robert's been wonderful. Really hands-on. We're so grateful. I sold my house to help them buy this one," I continued, cutting through her script. "Moved in 6 months ago. And somewhere along the way, I became, well, the help." Michael's head snapped toward me. Dad, it's true, son. My voice was calm. No anger, just facts. I clean. I cook. I run errands. I sleep in a storage room off the garage. And when important guests come over, I gestured to David. I'm usually asked to make myself scarce. The silence was deafening. David's expression shifted. Not shock, something colder. Disappointment. He turned to Claire. Is this true? She laughed. Too loud, too defensive. David, this is a huge misunderstanding. Robert's exaggerating. He has his own space. He chooses to help out and… I'm 64 years old, I interrupted quietly. I raised Michael alone from the time he was 6. Worked 2 jobs so he could go to college, so he could have opportunities I never had. I didn't move here to be treated like staff in a house I helped buy. Michael's face had gone pale. Dad, I didn't. I never meant for you to feel… I know, son. I met his eyes. You've been so focused on making this work, on making her happy, that you stopped seeing me. David stood up. Not aggressive, just decisive. Claire, Michael, thank you for dinner. The food was excellent. Wait! Claire stood, panic bleeding through her composure. David, please, this is just a family misunderstanding. It has nothing to do with the business. It has everything to do with the business. David's voice was firm but not unkind. I've built my career on reading people, Claire, and what I see here is a man who's forgotten his values, who's allowed someone important to be diminished in pursuit of… What? Image? Status? He turned to Michael. You have a good product, a solid business plan, but I invest in people, Michael. And right now, I don't know who you are. When you figure that out, when you remember where you came from and who got you here, call me. He walked to the door. Then he paused, turned back to me. Robert, it was an honor meeting you. Men like you, men who build things, who sacrifice for their kids, you're the real deal. I hope your son remembers that before it's too late. He shook my hand one last time, and then he left. The door closed. For 10 seconds, nobody moved. Then Claire exploded. What the fuck did you just do? She whirled on me, all pretense gone. You just sabotaged the biggest opportunity of Michael's career. You selfish, bitter old man. Claire. Michael's voice was barely above a whisper, but it cut through her rage like a blade. She turned to him, tears starting. Calculated tears, the kind she could turn on like a faucet. Michael, he ruined everything. We've been working toward this for months. Is it true? What? What Dad said. Have I been treating him like the help? Michael, he's exaggerating. Is it true? The question hung in the air. Claire's mouth opened, closed. She looked between us, realizing too late that her script wasn't working anymore. He lives here rent-free, she said finally. Is it really so terrible that he contributes to the household? He sold his house, Claire, his home, to help us buy this place. And we gave him a place to live. A storage room. Michael's voice was flat, numb. We put my father, the man who raised me, in a fucking storage room. It was temporary. For 6 months. Michael looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw the moment it hit him. All of it. The lists, the chores, the dinner parties where I was sent away, the way Claire spoke to me like I was invisible. Oh, God, his voice cracked. Dad, I'm so sorry. Son. I stood up, placed a hand on his shoulder. You don't need to apologize to me right now. You need to think. Claire grabbed his arm. Michael, don't let him manipulate you. This is what he wanted, to drive a wedge between us. I pulled out my phone. Claire, stop talking. Something in my tone made her freeze. Because if you say one more word, I'm going to play the recordings. All of them. The conversations with your friends about managing me. The phone calls to your mother about how temporary this arrangement is. The emails to your divorce lawyer. Her face went white. What? 6 months, I said quietly. 6 months of being invisible means I saw everything, heard everything, and documented everything. Michael stared at Claire. Divorce lawyer. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. "We'll talk tomorrow," I said to my son. "Tonight, you need to process and decide what kind of man you want to be." I walked to my storage room. Behind me, I heard Claire start to cry. Real tears this time. But it was too late. I didn't sleep that night. Neither did Michael. At 2:47 a.m., I heard footsteps outside my door. A soft knock. "Dad, you awake?" I opened the door. My son stood there in wrinkled clothes, eyes red-rimmed, looking like he'd aged 10 years in 6 hours. "Can we talk?" We sat in the kitchen, the one I'd cleaned 1,000 times. Michael made coffee with shaking hands, spilled sugar on the counter, didn't bother wiping it up. "Tell me everything," he said quietly. "No filter, no protecting my feelings. I need to know what I've done." So I told him, not with anger, not with accusations, just facts. The lists on the fridge, the post-it notes with chores, the dinner party where Claire introduced me as the help, the storage room with its water-stained ceiling and single window. Michael's hands tightened around his mug. "Keep going." I told him about the credit card statements, the $47,000 in 6 months on designer clothes, spa treatments, brunches with friends, all charged as business expenses. I told him about the conversations I'd overheard, Claire laughing with Vanessa about how easy he was to control, how she'd trained him to work himself to death while she lived like a trophy wife. And then I told him about the divorce lawyer. "Show me." His voice was hollow, empty. I pulled out my phone, opened the folder I'd labeled Evidence. Michael scrolled through the emails. Each one felt like watching him take a punch. Timeline. Approximately 6 to 8 months. Need to hit the 5-year mark for optimal alimony. He has a trust fund from his grandfather. Been getting him to transfer portions to joint account. That last one broke something in him. "The trust fund you set up for me." His voice cracked. "The one you built working nights. The one Mom couldn't touch when she left." $30,000, I said quietly. "That's how much she's moved so far." Michael set down the phone like it burned him, stared at his hands. "I chose her over you." "Michael." "I did." He looked up, tears streaming down his face. "Every time she dismissed you, every time she treated you like you were nothing. I saw it, Dad. I saw it, and I told myself you were fine, that you understood, that you'd raised me to be independent, so pulling away was normal." His voice broke completely. "But I wasn't being independent. I was being a coward. I let the woman I love disrespect the man who gave me everything because it was easier than standing up to her." I moved around the counter and pulled my son into a hug. He collapsed against me, sobbing like he hadn't since he was a kid, since his mother left, since the night I told him sometimes people choose to walk away and it's not our fault. "I'm so sorry, Dad. I'm so fucking sorry." "I know, son. I know." We stood there for a long time, father and son, the way it should have been all along. When Michael finally pulled back, something in his face had changed. Not broken, hardened. "Where is she?" "Guest room. I heard her go in around midnight." "Good." He wiped his face. "Because when she wakes up, we're ending this. Today." "Michael, you need to think about—" "I'm done thinking. I've spent 5 years thinking, analyzing, trying to make her happy, and the whole time she's been planning her exit strategy like I'm a fucking ATM." He pulled out his phone, started typing. "Who are you calling?" "Thomas, your lawyer friend. I want him here when I confront her. I want every base covered, because Claire isn't walking away with a dime." 8:15 a.m. Thomas arrived with a briefcase and a grim expression. He'd brought documents, legal protections, a strategy. "Michael, before we do this, you need to be prepared. Claire will deny, deflect, play victim. She'll say Robert manipulated the situation, that the emails are out of context. You have to stay firm." "I'm firm," Michael said. His voice had gone cold, controlled. "Let's do this." 8:30 a.m. We went upstairs together, the three of us. Michael knocked on the guest room door. "Claire, living room, now." "Michael, what's going on? It's so early." "Now." She came down 10 minutes later. No makeup, hair messy, but already calculating. I could see it in her eyes. She'd spent the night preparing her defense. She saw Thomas and faltered. "Why is there a lawyer in our house?" "Sit down, Claire." Michael's voice was ice. She sat, crossed her arms. "If this is about last night, your father completely—" "Stop." Michael held up a hand. "Just stop. No more lies. No more manipulation. No more pretending." He pulled out the folder, the evidence I'd compiled, 6 months of documentation, and he laid it out piece by piece. $47,000 in 6 months, Claire. Designer clothes, spa treatments, brunches, all charged to my accounts while I worked 80-hour weeks trying to keep the business afloat. "Michael, those were business expenses. A $4,000 handbag isn't a business expense. 3 spa days a week isn't a business expense. Your fake marketing consultancy that's never had a single client isn't a fucking business." She flinched. Actual fear flashed across her face. Michael pressed play on the first one. Claire's voice, bright and cruel. "He just does whatever I tell him. It's like having a butler, except I don't have to pay him." Her face drained of color. He played another, and another, each one worse than the last. "Michael's a pleaser. He just wants everyone happy. So I stay happy, and he works himself to death to keep it that way. I'm not living like this forever. The old man's so desperate to stay close to his son he'll scrub toilets if I ask." By the time Michael stopped, Claire was shaking. "Those were private conversations." "In my house," I said quietly. "California is a one-party consent state. Every recording is legal." Michael's hands trembled as he read aloud. "Timeline, 6 to 8 months. Need to hit 5-year mark for optimal alimony. He has a trust fund from his grandfather. Been getting him to transfer portions to joint account for emergencies." He looked up. "You've been planning to leave me for months, while I told you I loved you. While I worked myself half to death to give you the life you wanted. While my father cleaned our toilets." Claire tried tears, the ones that always worked. "Michael, you don't understand. I was scared. I felt trapped. Those emails were just contingency planning. I never actually—" $30,000, Michael interrupted. "That's how much you moved from the trust fund Dad set up for me. The one he built working night shifts and overtime. The one that was supposed to be protected." Thomas spoke for the first time. "Mrs. Mitchell, that constitutes financial manipulation and potentially fraud. Combined with the evidence of premeditated divorce strategy, you have no legal standing to challenge the prenup you signed." "Fine, fine. You want me gone? I'm gone. But I want half. Half this house, half the business equity, half of everything we built together." "You built nothing," Michael said, and his voice was so cold it scared me. "You spent. You lied. You manipulated. And you treated my father, the best man I've ever known, like garbage. I'm entitled. You're entitled to nothing." Thomas opened his briefcase. "The prenup you signed protects all assets brought into the marriage. The house was purchased primarily with Robert's money from his home sale, documented and notarized. The business was founded before your marriage. The trust fund is legally protected." He slid papers across the table. "You can take your personal items and the car in your name. Everything else stays. If you contest this, we'll file these recordings and emails as evidence of fraud. You'll lose, and you'll lose publicly." One last play. Soft voice, vulnerable eyes. "Michael, we loved each other once. Doesn't that mean anything?" He stared at her for a long moment. "I don't think you ever loved me, Claire. I think you loved what I could give you. And the moment that wasn't enough, you started planning your exit." He stood up. You have until Sunday to get your things and leave. After that, the locks change. You can't just, I can, I am. We're done. For the first time in 6 months, really looked at me. And I saw something I never expected. Fear. Genuine fear. Because she'd finally realized what she'd done. She'd underestimated the quiet old man in the storage room, and he'd systematically, patiently, perfectly dismantled everything she'd built. You did this, she whispered. You poisoned him against me. No, Claire. I stood up. I just showed him who you really were. You did the rest yourself. Packed her designer clothes, her expensive bags, her entire carefully curated life into suitcases. Michael and I sat in the living room while she moved through the house like a ghost. When she came downstairs for the last time, she paused at the door. I hope you're happy, Robert. You got what you wanted. What I wanted, I said quietly, was for you to treat me, and my son, with basic human decency. That's all. She slammed the door on her way out, and then it was just us, father and son, in the silence that followed. Chapter 6. Quiet redemption 3 months later. The house felt different now. Not because Claire was gone, though that helped, but because somewhere in the aftermath, Michael and I had started rebuilding. Not just our relationship. Everything. Not the storage space. The master guest suite. The one with the view Claire had always kept for important guests who never materialized. Dad, this is yours. I should have given it to you the day you moved in. New furniture, fresh paint, a bathroom that didn't smell like mildew, windows that actually opened. But the best part? Michael helped me move my things himself, carried boxes, hung pictures, asked where I wanted everything. We're doing this right, he kept saying. From now on, we do everything right. Both of us, separately and together. Michael needed to understand how he'd lost himself, how he'd let someone rewrite his values, his priorities, his sense of what mattered. I needed to process the anger I'd carried, the hurt, the 6 months of feeling invisible in my own life. Dr. Rosen, our therapist, said something in our joint session that stuck with me. Robert, you documented everything because you needed proof. But what you really needed was for Michael to see you again. And Michael, you needed to remember that love isn't about sacrifice. It's about partnership. Real partnership doesn't diminish anyone. Every week, no phones, no work. Just father and son, talking. About everything. About nothing. About Mom, finally. The mother he barely remembered, who'd walked out when he was 6. We'd never really talked about her. I'd protected him from the anger and abandonment I'd felt. Did you ever stop loving her? He asked one Sunday, pushing scrambled eggs around his plate. No, I admitted, but I learned to love you more, and that made the difference. He nodded. I think I loved the idea of Claire, the life she represented, but I never really knew her. And now I'm learning to know myself again. Slowly, but steadily. David Chen called 2 months after the dinner. Michael had been preparing for the conversation for weeks, what to say, how to explain. But David cut right to it. Did you figure it out? Who you are? I'm working on it, Michael said honestly. Every day. Good, send me your updated pitch deck. Let's talk. They met the following week. David invested. Not the full amount Michael had hoped for, but enough. With the terms that were fair, mentorship that was real. I don't invest in perfect people, David told him. I invest in people who learn from their mistakes. You learned. That matters. Claire's former best friend showed up at the house one Saturday afternoon. Michael was at the office. I almost didn't answer the door. Mr. Mitchell, Robert, I know I have no right to be here, but I need to apologize. We sat on the porch. She cried. Real tears, not the performative kind Claire had mastered. I was complicit. I knew how she talked about you, how she treated you, and I said nothing. I laughed at some of those jokes, and I'm so ashamed. Why are you telling me this? Because I have a father, and if someone treated him the way Claire treated you—" She wiped her eyes. "I wouldn't forgive myself. I can't ask you to forgive me. But I needed you to know. I see you. I'm sorry I didn't before." About elder respect. About recognizing abuse. Even in nice families. Even when it looks like helping out. It went viral. Local news picked it up. And suddenly, my story, or a version of it, was sparking conversations about how we treat aging parents, in-laws, family members who sacrifice everything. Vanessa called it the invisible generation. People started sharing their own stories. Thousands of them. A producer reached out, wanted to interview me for a documentary. I declined. This wasn't about fame or vindication. It was about dignity. And I'd already reclaimed mine. Sarah, a software engineer at a startup 3 blocks from his office. Quiet, smart, kind. She came to Sunday breakfast once. Asked about my construction days, my favorite projects, what it was like raising Michael alone. She listened. After she left, Michael said, "What do you think?" "I think she sees you. The real you. Not what you can give her." He smiled. "Yeah, that's what I think too." The one Michael and I had rebuilt together. New deck boards, new railing. We'd done it ourselves. Him learning, me teaching. Like when he was a kid and I'd shown him how to hammer a nail straight. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you regret it? The way you handled Claire? Some people might say you were manipulative. That you should have just told me everything up front." I thought about it. Really thought. I could have told you everything that first week. Shown you the receipts. Played you the recordings. And you know what would have happened? What? You would have defended her. Made excuses. Convinced yourself I was the problem. That I was jealous, or old-fashioned, or bitter. Because you loved her. Or you loved who you thought she was. Michael nodded slowly. By documenting everything, by letting her show you who she really was, I gave you the truth in a way you couldn't deny. Was it manipulation? Maybe. But sometimes love means letting people discover their own lessons, even when it breaks your heart to watch. "I don't think about Claire anymore," I said honestly. "Forgiveness isn't about her. It's about me letting go. And I have." "I haven't. Not completely." "You will, when you're ready. Because holding on to anger just means she's still taking up space in your life, and she doesn't deserve that space." Michael leaned back in his chair. "How'd you get so wise?" 65 years of mistakes." I smiled. "And a son who reminds me what I'm doing it all for. Orange and pink painting the sky, the kind of view that makes you remember why you stay, why you fight, why you choose hope over bitterness." Michael's phone buzzed. He glanced at it. "Sarah wants to know if you're free next Sunday. Her parents are visiting. She wants them to meet you." "Meet me? Why?" "Because you're important to me. And she knows that family, real family, isn't about biology or obligations. It's about respect, and love, and showing up." My throat tightened. "I'd like that." "Good." He pocked his phone. "Oh, and Dad? Sarah asked if you'd help her fix her porch stairs. Said she doesn't trust contractors after some guy botched her deck last year." I laughed. Actually laughed. "She knows I'm retired, right?" "She knows you're the guy who taught me that building things right matters more than building them fast. That's the guy she wants." And I realized something. Claire had tried to make me invisible, to reduce me to nothing more than a servant, a burden, an inconvenience. But what she didn't understand, what people like her never understand, is that you can't erase someone who knows their worth. You can dismiss them, disrespect them, try to diminish them, but their value doesn't come from your recognition. It comes from a lifetime of building things that last, of raising kids who become good people, of working with your hands and your heart and refusing to compromise your dignity. "Dad?" "Yeah, son? Thank you for not giving up on me." I reached over and squeezed his shoulder. Never. Not once. Not ever. And for the first time in a long time, maybe the first time since his mother left, I felt complete. Not because I'd gotten revenge, but because I'd gotten my son back. And that was worth every single day of being invisible. Because in the end, I wasn't invisible at all. I was right where I belonged. Home. And that's the story. From humiliation to documentation to confrontation to redemption. Robert didn't just take down someone who deserved it. He rebuilt something that mattered more, his relationship with his son. If this story moved you, if it made you think about the people in your life who deserve more respect, more recognition, more love, then I need you to do something. Subscribe to this channel right now. Because stories like this matter. They remind us that dignity is never lost, only forgotten. That patience is powerful. That family, real family, is worth fighting for. Smash that like button. Let me know this resonated with you. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that standing up for yourself doesn't always mean raising your voice. Sometimes it means being strategic, patient, unshakable. Drop a comment telling me, what's the biggest lesson you took from Robert's story? And if you have an elderly parent, a family member, someone who sacrificed for you, call them today. Tell them they matter. Tell them you see them. Because the greatest revenge against people like Claire isn't destruction. It's building something beautiful that they'll never understand. Thank you for taking this journey with me. Until next time, remember, respect isn't optional, dignity isn't negotiable, and family, real family, that's everything. Hit that subscribe button. I'll see you in the next story.